the idea that you have to wait for the afterlife to experience it is ridiculous. It's ludicrous. The power and presence of God is within you right here, right now, today, in this moment, and it's always within you at any given moment. And it's always guiding you, directing you, um, embracing you, forgiving you, expanding you to all that you're meant to be. And it's just that we resist it.
Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Bites. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. Today we're joined by Mark Patterson, a globally acknowledged expert in the realm of sound healing, renowned by best-selling authors for his extraordinary skills in sound healing and vocal toning. Mark has taken center stage as a keynote speaker at expos and conferences worldwide. His unique gift for healing through sound was unveiled during a profound near-death experience, or NDE, as we'll refer to it today. Calling North Carolina, USA home, Mark, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure is mine. Thank you, Doug. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Now, you're the first person I've interviewed who's admitted, anyway, to having an NDE. When I was 9, my mum had a miscarriage and came home from hospital and told me she had left her body and saw a tunnel with a bright white light, but then quickly came back to her body. She opened her eyes and was actually devastated that she was back in this world because it was so wonderful on the other side. And, that would have been life-changing for me had she not come back as a 9-year-old. Your experience was considerably different. Let's start with what happened to you.
Well, yeah, that's a great question, and we're going to get into that in just a second. But I always like to go to what happened to set the stage to what happened that night to me, why I crossed over, because I think it's important to the audience to understand kind of my background. So I was a kid, growing up, I was very psychic as a kid. I saw auras and lights around people. I had visitations from angels and other beings. I experienced UFOs and ETs as a kid very commonly. And unfortunately, Doug, I was told that I was crazy. Shut up. Don't talk about that. Why do you know those things? How did you know that? Don't talk about that. And of course, my father, who was a holy roller, a Southern Baptist, he always told me that I was possessed. So, Doug, unfortunately, we learn, that being psychic or being intuitive or having that sixth sense is not smiled upon, especially, when I was growing up. And so I didn't want to feel those things anymore. I didn't want to feel, I didn't want to hear, I didn't want to see the lights anymore. So by the time I was 13 or 14, I was into drugs and alcohol because it's the only thing that shut it out. I didn't want to feel anymore. And then when I was 16, I was at the Canterbury Inn in Coralville, Iowa at a high school party. And of course, all my friends were older. And so I decided I would try to impress all of my older classmates. So I chugged a fifth of vodka, 4 beers, 2 glasses of wine, and probably about 3 or 4 wine coolers in about 90 minutes. And so needless to say, my body went into cardiac arrest from acute alcohol poisoning. And as I left my body, and anyone that's had a near-death experience will tell you that when you first leave your body, it's kind of scary because no one can hear you as you're trying to get a hold of your classmates that just, like an hour prior was going chug, 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 with the bottle. And then I was greeted by my grandfather, Russell. Russell passed away when I was probably around 3 years old. And Doug, it's very common that if you have a grandparent who passes away when you're very young, they in turn become like your guardian. They look over you along with your angels and guides and things like that. So like you were talking about earlier, going into light. So then he informed me that I was going home. I mean, I really was under the impression that I was not coming back. And again, when you're on the other side, the other dimensional realities, everything is simultaneous. So while my grandfather is talking to me, I'm also having this interaction where I go into the light and I'm greeted by seven angels. They're about 14 feet tall each. They're female in appearance. And I've said for years, something that I can relate to would be like in the movie Empire Strikes Back, the City of the Clouds. We call it heaven. That there was like a hologram of my life. This is a holographic universe. So anytime I was angry, resentful, or blamed other people, and that's all that we ever do when we're teenagers, the angels asked, how does that relate to love? And everything in life is an opportunity for us to express love. Forgiving, if you are forgiving, you are forgiving your love away. If you're always out getting things, getting the car, the house, the material stuff, you are forgetting who you really are. And then they introduced me to a being, Doug, goes over 30 feet tall, like when you go to Abu Simbel in Egypt, where they found the lost civilizations of the giants at the bottom of the Grand Canyon in Arizona. There's evidence of giants, the Bible talks about in those days were the giants saw that the wives of men were fair and took them as their own. So this 40-foot being formed itself into an icosahedron, which is a Platonic solid, and came into my heart and brought Mark back to life. And so in New Age terms, I'm a walk-in. I got a different soul when I was 16, but throughout that exchange with my grandfather telling me I was going home, this new being come in. I was downloaded with information that related to sound, healing through sound, sacred geometry, the Platonic solids, and specifically the Melchizedek priesthood. The reference in the Bible is, and Jesus is like Melchizedek, and thou forever shall be in the priesthood of Melchizedek. So yeah, definitely I relate to what you were saying earlier, Doug, in that when you are in heaven, that love, that peace, that compassion, and that's just it. You cannot fathom. When I say you, I'm not just talking to you, Doug. I'm talking to everyone that may listen to this. You cannot fathom as to how loved you are. You are loved no matter what you do. You can't get this wrong being a human. Like, Doug, if you and I leave for Jamaica and we leave at the same time, and if you arrive to Jamaica 2 hours after I do, that doesn't mean you failed Jamaica. You just got there at a different time. And so it just, and I've been allowed to experience this again like 3 or 4 times in the dream state, just as a reminder saying, we really are loved. So it was a really amazing experience. And of course you feel when you come back, this third dimensional reality that we call Earth is challenging, and it has its ups and downs and its emotional things, and we have drama and addictions and conflicts, but and that's why it's kind of sad. And most people who have had a near-death experience will tell you, Doug, that they immediately long for that love again. And that's very true.
So you're 16 when all this has happened. Yeah, and I've listened to, the way for the audience, they're like, gee, where did you find Mark? There's a podcast that I randomly started listening to a while ago, and it just has people on. No one even introduces the people. The people just, and Mark was one of them, come on, and they talk about their near-death experiences. And because that sort of stuff does interest me. I've never experienced it. Certainly don't remember anything like that. But as a 16-year-old, and things you were saying in there, you're talking about your grandfather. Both of my grandmothers passed, one before I was born, one 20 years before, and one 30-odd years before. They were both quite young. And in recent years, I've come to feel that both of them are, part of my team on the other
Sure.
side.
Absolutely.
I have conversations with them at times, and I can remember in my mid-20s one day, I just because my parents rarely ever talked about them, so I knew nothing of them. But one day, one of them was buried in a graveyard near our home, and I just went in my mid-20s and found her. And when I finally found the grave, I was just in tears. And yeah, so it's and it wasn't back then when I had this realization that she was watching over me, but just more in more recent years. And I just something you said there before, you used the word forgiving, and you said we're forever giving. So if we can be forgiveful,
Forgiving is for giving your love away no matter what happens to you.
okay, so people have wronged us, upset us, said something, did something we didn't like, and we choose to be to give our love to them. We're forever giving that love away. And words often have meanings that we don't realize quite often, I find, and we just say the words so often we don't realize the whole context. So let's just take you back. You're 16. You've had this, I'll use the word profound experience, and you're back in your body. Like you ended up in the emergency room, and you've dropped back. Like, did the doctors say how long you were? Were they working on you for minutes or hours, or were you unconscious then when you
I
came
was,
back?
yeah, I was unconscious. My skin was black, green, and purple. I was unconscious for 22 minutes.
Right. Okay. And that was not in the hospital then. That was at the party.
That was at the party, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So the ambulance has come and take you to the hospital. Your parents have come. And how long were you in hospital for?
Just overnight.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And then, so I guess everyone just felt that you just passed out
Yeah.
and
To everyone that was at the party, I drank too much. I passed out, and no one knew that I had an experience. And it's kind of like the movie that Heaven is Real, that was done by that was financially backed by the TV minister TD Jakes, TD Jakes.
I've heard
Uh,
of him. Yeah.
yeah, and that's what they kind of talked about, that the young boy had the near death experience, but no one knew that he had actually died.
Right. And so were you vocal about what happened to you when you came back, or did you keep your mouth
Oh
closed,
no,
honestly?
I didn't know what the hell to think of it. I knew that something profound had happened to me, but I think I told two people. I just didn't talk about it. I told the girl that I was dating at the time. Well, it was like 6, 7 years after it happened. The only person I talked about it in quote real time was my friend Dean, he's still in Iowa. He's a chiropractor and acupuncturist in Iowa City. He's the only one that knew about it when it happened.
Mm.
But I didn't tell Kirsten till 92 or 93, 6, 7 years after it. And then, well, I just told, no, there was like, I remember about 10 or 15 years ago, there was a documentary about near death experiences. It was on the History Channel. And they had women, they interviewed like 10 women, they interviewed 10 men that had near death experiences. This true story. Each of the 10 men did not tell anyone for 10 years before they said, yeah, something happened, this profound heaven experience happened to me. And, I don't think I would have talked about it until I got in 1995, 10 years later. I got the phone call at 1:30 in the morning from a woman I never met, never spoke with before. I really don't know how she got my number. Um, and she described verbatim what happened to me that night during my near death experience. When I was a child growing up, Doug, I used to dream over and over again that all the gifts were inside my bedroom closet. Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Disneyland were inside my bedroom closet. If I wanted to feel love, if I wanted to feel magical or special, all those things I found inside my bedroom closet. Well, 40 years later, you realize that the meaning of that dream was about all the gifts, everything that you want is already in the closet of your own heart. It's already within you. And the lady that called me at 1:30 in the morning, she only told me verbatim what I was told in my near-death experience at night. She talked to me about that dream, the inner closet dream that I had over and over again during my childhood. That, of course, no one knew about. I was very withdrawn. I was very quiet. It was very quiet, kept to myself. I
Yeah.
was an only child, latchkey kid
So,
from Iowa City.
yeah. So sorry to interrupt you there, but I'm real curious. You're talking about those 10 men, and I can relate to that they clammed up, and I'm assuming that some of the women did tell people. I'm
And
just curious.
the women told everyone, but the men were like, "No, we
Yeah.
ain't talking about this."
So what I want to hear is, what was your friend's name that you did tell? That friend,
Dean,
Dean.
Dean, yeah.
When you told Dean, like in real time, like very shortly after it happened, how did you feel when you were telling him?
I just didn't. Was it real? Did
Mm.
that really happen? I just know that my skin was purple, black, and green. I know that I was completely unconscious. I know that I left my body. I know I had this profound experience, but yet you still, because it's so unreal. It's so not, like it's not like you see the car and you touch the car,
Mm.
and you know that is like a BMW 325i or whatever it may be. You touch it, you feel it, you know it's real. But this was so mystical, so profound, so just unbelievable. It's like, was that real?
So
You know,
how did Dean react to the story?
well, Dean was kind of a mentor, because he's a chiropractor, acupuncturist. He's been doing all this alternative stuff all of his life. So he was very open and supportive and said, "Yeah, it's quite possible that happened."
And then
You
when
know,
you finally, many years later, you started telling the world about it, how did you feel then? Did you feel a relief to get it out?
yeah, yes and no, but because at first I was like, wow, this really did happen to me, especially if that because it was about a year later after I got that phone call at 1:30 in the morning that I started to speak in public about what had happened to me, my near-death experience. And that was my first talk I did was in 1997, August. It was August 17th, 1997, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, at the Mastering Life Center for about
Oh.
200 people.
And so okay, so I've interrupted you enough there, and you're in the story about
Okay.
this lady ringing you at 1:30 in the morning. Um, I, if you said it, I didn't get it yet. What was the purpose of this random lady? What was the purpose of her call to you and recounting your experience to you?
So the purpose of the call was to say, hey, that really did happen to you. That was a real experience. You are, in fact, a walk and you have this connection. And that the other thing was to awaken my thing with sound. Because I was just kind of dabbling with sound back then, really not doing it. And that's when like the first kind of the tones started to come through me and we started seeing, the amazing things that would come through me when I do my vocal toning. That's
Right,
when it
yeah.
first started to unfold. Yeah.
Yeah, and the vocal toning's really interesting for the audience. I'd not heard of this before. I wasn't familiar with it before meeting Mark. Now, he used to give us a demonstration, but just apparently he's struggling with current technology. And when he makes these tones, they suddenly don't
That's
come through now. He's sent me 3 audio files, so I've got them, and I might do some short clips and add into this podcast so people can hear. Now, the 3 that you sent me through, so just clarify this, you make these tones with your voice?
so what happens is that like when I go into the vocal tone and just to let people know, basically like the crystal bowls, the singing bowls you hit and you go around. I have some here. I have a lot, and you do, and they make that pure tone, like the heart chakra bowl, whatever it may be. I literally become that, and those tones come through me, and we feel like it's the Hathors. I've been to Egypt on a few occasions, and you go to Dendara, the Hawthorne temple, and the Hawthorns have the really large ears. They look like they're elves. They are like the god and goddess of joy and music, and they're the ones that seem to come through me, that put the tones through me. So it's a pure tone, and we have found over and over again that it doesn't matter if there's 5 people in front of me, or 500 people in front of me, that the tone that comes through me goes to each individual person's greatest point of pain, and it breaks it up. Much like doctors use gallstones and kidney stones to break, or they use sound waves to break up gallstones and kidney stones and things like that.
Right, very interesting. And I'm just looking here now. So the three that you gave me, the first one, you titled it as Pure Tones for Clearing, and it's just really like, to me, I would compare it to your example of the singing bowl. It's basically a single tone. Then the next one you called Mystics, Messengers, and Masters, and it was you, different voices going through, speaking different names. It sounded in there like potentially you were saying Mary Magdalene, sorry, Mary, Mother Teresa. Is that correct, or was I
So
hearing that wrong?
it's originally based off of Tom Kenyon doing the Garbandana. The Garbandana is Sanskrit for those who sing hymns to God. So it's just me chanting out the different names of God throughout various religions. It's invoking their presence, and it's very powerful and very relaxing.
Right. And then the third one was echoes from, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong,
That's right.
Guyota.
Echoes from Gayota, because that is from the Gaito monks, the Tibetan Gaito monks, and so I do the Tibetan, the Peruvian throat singing, which is what that track is, and that one, of all the 3 tracks I sing, that one is really special. It's really, I mean, you could literally put that on repeat, and it'll put you into a meditative state like that. It's pretty profound. We recorded that up in Seattle and Vancouver in 2002.
Yeah. And probably 10, 15 minutes before we connected here for the podcast, I was sitting here meditating to them, playing them, and
Right.
just, yeah, it was, they're very enjoyable. So you do sessions with people where you use these sounds?
Yeah, I incorporate my voice, vocal toning, chanting, and the bowls to really create. Because what sound does is it clears your energy field, so that you can, because we carry so much stuff, like in the modern world, modern technology, must go here, must do this, must be here, all these things. We forget to be still. The passage says to be still and know that I am. Well, that passage was referring to you, to be still and remember that you are. And we just get so busy with all this stuff that we think that we have to do. We forget that, it's really about learning to go within and to be still.
Yeah. So when we spoke a week or so ago, you made the statement there, sound creates stillness. So, and I guess that's what you're talking about here
Right.
at this point. Yeah. So, uh, can you elaborate on that at all? Like how sound creates stillness?
Sure. So if you're doing a pure tone, a smooth, if you're doing a pure tone, all that your brain can do is focus on that sound. And what happens is that because you're so focused on that sound, you let go of everything else, so that you can relax into that sound. I mean, I've been in 2005, I was in Dublin, Ireland, and there were 2 females outside. It was probably about 50 or 60 degrees outside Fahrenheit. And they were singing soprano and alto soprano. And I mean, there was about 30 or 40 people around these 2 singers. And I mean, we were on our knees, because it's just so, those angelic voices just came through, and it just, because all you do is you just surrender to that sound. Or like you listen to someone like Pavarotti, that just takes you to those other places. It's because that music is so pure and powerful. it elevates our awareness and our consciousness so that we can let go and relax and let go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So podcast's all about intuition, so I'll bring that in here. So your sound healing and your vocal toning, could that potentially help people with intuition?
Oh, absolutely. Because what it does is because it, as you, whatever you're holding on to, as you do those sounds, it clears it and breaks it up so that your energy flows better. When your energy is in more flow and your chakras are balanced and clean and your energetic field is clean, you are more connected to source energy. And when you're more connected to source energy, you are more intuitive, you're more psychic, you see things and sense things. But a lot of our energy field is has stuff in it because disease starts the energy field before it makes its way into the body. And Valerie Hunt has probably written more about the human energy field than any other person that I'm aware of on the planet. And she talks about that a lot. So does Barbara Ann Brennan, who wrote the book Hands of Light, which is a really good book too, about how disease and things starts here in the energy field before it makes its way into the physical body. So if you can change the frequency of what's going on in your energy field, you can produce a lot of healing in the body.
Interesting. So, and I often in a podcast will talk about that in a similar way, and I use the word, and I go back
Yeah.
to, and I know you're not quite as old as me, but possibly your first car had an old-fashioned radio with a dial rather than the new digital ones we have these days. And when we dialed in between stations, we picked up static depending on how high the antenna was and that sort of thing. So yeah, is that
No,
so,
that is a great, perfect analogy. You want to say static or stagnant or static? Yeah, I mean it's definitely, we definitely have stuff in our energy field that we might carry from things from our childhood, things from other lifetimes, whatever it may be. But yeah, there are definitely things in our energy field that create static and prevent us from being in flow, from being in tune to source energy. Yeah, absolutely.
right? So if we've got that static there, and what you're saying, your vocal toning can help if that's, and I guess disease would be not just some static that's been there for 10 minutes. It's been there, it's lingering, as you suggested, from a previous incarnation on the planet, previous life, or
Oh, yeah,
it's,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, or something that's happened in our childhood, and subconsciously we may have even forgotten that it happened in our younger years, and we've held on to it, and we wonder why we are afraid of the water or scared of what's in the closet, or there's a monster under the bed, or whatever is our bothers us, and it's a build up, and now there's sound. Because I've done some short studies, a few short 3-day courses with tuning forks and other things like that, and in a similar way, try and clear that energy that's built up. And it doesn't destroy it or do anything, but it just, my simplistic way of describing it, I guess, is just loosens it up and allows that energy to flow back into the energy field again, instead of it's just unsticks it
It,
in that spot.
it allows it to transmute it. It's just like I said earlier, that it's the analogy that medical doctors now use sound waves to break up gallstones and kidney stones because it's a dense matter. You hit it with a pure vibration, and it breaks up the energy. Greg, the famous best-selling author Greg Braden, he has a videotape of Chinese qigong healers that use energy and sound to break up a golf ball sized tumor in about 3 to 4 minutes. It's a live video, like like a sonogram X-ray video that
Mm.
shows the tumor can be completely dissolved in about 3 or 4 minutes. And it's just, sound is really powerful. Edgar Casey, the
So,
famous psychic, said that sound would be the healing modality of the future, and many of us believe that future is here.
so sorry, just with our internet connection, you dropped out slightly to me. You were talking there about sound was healing was going to be like the wave of medical stuff for the future. And where did that came to you as a premonition,
No,
or?
that's no Edgar Casey. Edgar
Oh,
Casey,
yes.
famous psychic, is the one that said that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that guy. I just that bit, his name dropped out. I didn't hear that.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, fine. Very interesting. Yeah, no, that's great. So these gallstones that I'm gonna use the word energy again. I just want to call it for a minute, correctly or incorrectly, an energy buildup. And it's however big they are. Let's just say it's a golf ball size. It was probably smaller. Um, so that Am I correct in saying that that's a buildup of energy from something that's happened in that person's life? Maybe their emotions have got involved here and are causing that energy to not flow and to build up in
Yeah,
that one spot.
yeah. I mean, emotions are energy in motion. So if you have emotions that are built up and pent up, or if you have unresolved issues, because everything is energy, everything is frequency, everything is harmonics, everything is energy, it's all space. We think we're solid, but actually in reality, we're all subparticles, atomic particles floating around. And it's just the lower the vibration, the slower the vibration of that thing, the more dense it becomes. And so the idea is that it's like disease is like resistance of energy and how it flows in the body. And it can take form as a cancer tumor, as a gallstone, as a kidney stone. Simplest explanation is be like a headache, but it's all energy, it's all frequency, it's all just things that are vibrating at different rates. And the slower that something vibrates, the more dense it is.
Right. Okay. So a week ago when we spoke, I think I mentioned to you that my son has a business where, and part of it, he offers, he's got a sound bed with the
Yeah.
transducers and things. Well, since we spoke, I had my 60th birthday. So for my birthday, he's
Well,
bought
happy
me
birthday.
thank you. He's bought me the amplifier and the transducers, and I've installed them here in a window bed that we've got at home. So I now have my own sound bed, and he's got the right, um, I'll use the word very loosely, songs, whatever we're out to play. So I've got those, and they're 30 minutes for healing and stuff. So my wife and I have been laying on this bed, and yeah, and it puts you out very quick. My 5-year-old grandson was the first one to have a go because he's into everything, and he was like, "What are you guys doing?" And because grandma wasn't around when we were doing it, and grandma rules the world in his mind. And he's saying to my son and I, "Are you guys allowed to be doing this?" And we're like, "Yeah, doing it
Do
all."
you have a permit for that?
Yeah, yeah. And it was like, if you don't tell grandma, like, we'll let you have a go. So he's on there, and I'm talking, we laid him on there, and started vibrating because you can actually hear the low tones.
Yeah,
Because I think it goes from 0 to 75 hertz, somewhere like that. And he just went out within half a second. He was gone. We had to keep, and this is a kid who's wired, like he's alive all the time, into
right.
everything. And well, I did to keep tapping him on the hand to get his attention, like, and give him the thumbs up because he's got the headphones on, and he just keeps looking at me with the eyes open, like, "Grandpa, just leave me alone." Like, he was gone. He was gone. It was just like, just these eyes. It was just leave it alone. I'm in the zone. I'm gone. And yeah, it's really enjoyable. It's uh, like you talked before with those tones, when you're making those tones, it's hard to think about or worry about things. And that's what this bed seems to do. It just takes you away. I mean, you can still obviously think of things, but the worries of the world go away. The frequencies are
Right.
going through the whole body. And it's, yeah, a very, very cool thing to do. I'm glad people have put in the effort to develop this technology.
Yeah. So I lived in Sedona, Arizona for about 15 years, and Neuromagic in Sedona used a $40,000 computer software program that analyzed my vocal toning. And what it does is it puts the tones that come through me, the first track that's on the audio file I sent you, they did it both live and they did it as a recording, puts the alpha, delta, beta, and theta waves in the exact harmonic ratios so that people can, in fact, have less insomnia, they have less depression, they have less pain in their bodies because it does, in fact, balance those brain waves. And if you're playing around with that 40 to 70 hertz on that sound bed, that's gamma. And what gamma waves do is they put you into a higher state of consciousness. This is what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about all the time, is that 40 hertz is the ideal hertz for producing higher states of consciousness, gamma waves. Yeah, that's a great example. I tried to build a couple sound beds in Sedona with little Bose cubes and the little NHT Super Ones. Now hear this speakers. Those are incredible speakers, by the way. Best bookshelf speakers made. And I just couldn't get it. Maybe I'll play around with it again. But I know my friend David Gibson out in San Francisco. Oh man, does he got stuff? He's got sound chairs, he's got sound tables. Just like you were saying, you land it, boom, you're gone. And then 45 minutes later, he goes, "Hello, come back." It's really, yeah, it's really, this stuff is awesome, and it's, more and more people, I hope more and more people catch on to sound healing and sound frequencies because there's no side effects. The side
Exactly.
effects is, yeah, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. And it's like when you had your NDE, all your mates are going chug, chug, chug. And when you passed out, the next day, they're just like, oh, Mark's, yeah, he's got a bad hangover today. We'll let him go. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Whereas, and the other thing, my son, he started his business before he got the sound bed with this Lucia light, and it was developed by these two gentlemen in Austria back in, I think, around 2010. And one of them, apparently, my son knows 100,000 times more about it than I. It's what he tells me. One of them, as a child, had an NDE and was then fascinated with the brain and has studied neuroscience. And I'm not sure to what level, potentially is a neuroscientist, and so they developed this light so you lay under it and it flashes just LED lights at you, and it's just white, but when you close your eyes and you put headphones on with some cool music, it all of a sudden there's just this kaleidoscope of colors, and it takes you away very quickly. You I don't know where you go, but you're not in your normal state. You just feel super relaxed. And again, 45 minutes later, bang, you come out of it and there's no headache, there's no hangover, and you just
Right.
snap out of it. And people, my son's had people, and he's read plenty of other cases with people around the world who've experienced it, who prior to using the light have tried plant medicines, ayahuasca, etc. They've gone,
Right.
to the Amazon and they've done the whole thing, and they come back and they say, this thing is so similar to one of those experiences, but without the throwing up, without the,
Right. Yeah.
without, the whole trek.
Right.
And I guess there is something to be said about putting in the effort to travel a long distance to have an experience. And that would be part of it too. But yeah, this is a simple, very legal way to just and while my son was fitting out his shop, he was temporarily living at our home. So it was awesome. So for nearly 3 months, we had the light here at the house. So every day I would do a 30 to 45-minute session under it. And I was a little bit like a guinea pig, thought we were trying different types of music and all that sort of stuff. Even one time I had a couple of beers before it just to see how that would, and that definitely just took away from it. It was just like, that was the last thing I wanted to do was have any alcohol. I mean, it wasn't bad at all, but it just took away from it. It was just like on a scale of 1 to 100, instead of a 60 to a 95, it was like a 25. It was just like, huh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, something sort of happened, but it's pretty if it was your first time, you wouldn't know any different. But when I'd had some really crazy experience, like amazing, and sometimes you talked about Dr. Joe Dispenza, some of the best sessions I had were listening to his guided meditations with it on. It it was like the light amplified those 10 to 50 times. You know, they're awesome guided meditations and they don't need amplifying. But under this light, it was just, I could feel myself as the weeks went on. I was saying to my son, because you know, my wife says I'm on this, you know, constantly reinventing myself. And I was feeling like in a period of a week, I was advancing 3 to 4 months in my, you know, personal spiritual evolution or my little journey I'm on. When I was doing that, it was just the combination of different things. It was amazing at the time. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of brain and entrainment stuff out there. There's mind body glasses that flash lights, and you hook it up into a sound machine. Um, I, I'm old school. I have Nakamichi, Denon. Um, I've got Klipsch, Polk Audio, Paul Barton, old Mirage speakers, and so I have a home theater system that creates sound fields around people, and it's really powerful stuff to see how people respond to sound waves and frequencies. But you know, just to remind everyone why sound is so important, just think about the word universe. The word universe means one song. Person is persona. It is per song, through song. That's what person means. That's Greek for through sound or per sound. Um, the Hopi and Anastasi, it said that the elders would sing to the crops and produce kernels of corn the size of most men's thumbs. The Hopi legend is that grandmother Spider Woman spun and sung the web of the universe into existence. James Redfield in the Celestine Prophecy talks about singing to plants to make them grow. But if you really want to get into why sound is so important to you and the planet, um, all the stuff that we're talking about comes from Rife. You know, the David Rife who invented Rife technology, and back in the 50s or whatever it was. And of course, people knew it was Hans Jen with cymatics, showing that if you run sand filings and magnetic filings through sound waves, it produces geometric patterns, for everything that's on the planet. Then Dr. Emoto Matsuura took that to the next level with messages from the water showing that everything is based in geometry, sound waves, and things like that. But so Dan, get back to my point. Dan Carlson was a farmer out of Wisconsin, and his wife had breast cancer. She had some type of cancer in her body, and he was fascinated with Rife technology, and he found that was something that was effective for her cancer. So Doug, he became fascinated with sound waves, sound frequencies. Like, what else can this stuff do, right? So he started running sound waves through his fields because he was a farmer in Wisconsin. Well, he found that when he ran a 4,000 hertz frequency through the fields, that it produced a 400% greater yield. I didn't say 40, I said 400% greater yield. It was tomatoes, green beans, it didn't matter. It was across the board. When he ran that 4,000 hertz frequency through the fields, it produced this massive yield, right?
So how did he
And
run it? Like just through speakers or through something in the
he
ground
had
or?
like an oscillator. He had some kind of like device set up. He ran it through the fields. Well, then he became fascinated with everything in nature. So here's the kicker. This is why this is so important. He started measuring things in nature, what their vibration was, what they were producing. So Doug, he found that when birds chirp in the morning, they sing in the morning, they are singing at 4,000 hertz. They're literally singing life into the planet every morning. When crickets chirp at night, they cycle at 2,000 cycles, 2,000 hertz per second. They're closing everything down. So everything in nature and growth is based on harmonics and frequencies of the planet. It's just fascinating stuff.
Wow. And where I live, kind of rural, I'm on a couple of acres, but all our neighbors are on 10 to 50 acres. And we're in this lush, beautiful valley. And in the mornings, oh yeah, we have just a symphony of birds. It's It's crazy, you know. It's and we have a little B
Yes.
and B, on the property, and I often wonder whether the guests are fascinated with the birds or frustrated with being woken so early. You know, like it's yeah,
But the sound that the birds are producing is giving life to the planet every morning.
yeah,
It's unbelievable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the big nature knows what we need.
Nature knows, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it really does. Now, I'm curious. Some people might envy you with all the things you've been talking about, your different experiences, but I'm curious from your point of view, are you glad that you've had them, or can they seem too much sometimes?
So yeah, I definitely, as I get older, I've learned to value and appreciate them more. I don't think I really understood it, because after my near death experience, I had this experience like a month or two afterwards, where I was up in talking about Wisconsin. I was in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, in Door County, with with a friend of mine, and I went to Peter's mother, and I said, you need to tell your daughter not to come up here. I just don't think she should be up here at this time. And I just kept saying that, look, you don't understand. Your daughter should not be up here right now. And Peter's mom was kind of like, well, I know that we've been fighting, and that might make you uncomfortable. And I was like, no, it's like she should not be up here. And so, needless to say, their daughter was, um, well, I mean, they got so upset they got so upset with me. They sent me home on a Greyhound bus the next morning because they kept saying, look, call your daughter, tell her not to come up. So Doug, unfortunately, she was killed in the car accident on the way up, going up. And, there was a part of me that was getting that message. And so, um, it made me, not, I was already psychic as a kid. The narrative experience made me more intuitive, and I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to do that. So I didn't drink, but I think I did drugs every day from about 16 to 18, or 16 to 19. And then around the age of 18 or so, I was introduced to Dick Sutphin, who wrote the book "You Were Born Again to Be Together," about reincarnation, past lives. And I was also introduced to Jerry Bowman and Joe Albiani. So Jerry Bowman was a trance channel. Joe Albiani was an attorney out of Boston. And they did the Out of the Ordinary show out of KIEV in Los Angeles, California. And Jerry Bowman, who probably no one has ever heard of, but you probably may have heard of an actress named Shirley MacLaine. Shirley MacLaine's channel or medium was Kevin Ryerson, and Kevin Ryerson was channeling John the Apostle. Well, Jerry Bowman was also channeling John, and I found after listening to Jerry Bowman and the Out of the Ordinary show with Joe Albiani, that John started coming to me and speaking to me directly. And he would say things like, we never use the truth to be right. We never use the truth to make others wrong. We never use the truth to score points for ego. The kingdom of, he would say things like, the kingdom of God is within you. Why do you seek anything else? A master is not called a master because he himself says so. A master is called master because those who witness him say that he is master. So from about 18 to 25, I just received a lot of information, not like just like you and I are talking now, but also like in my dream state from John and many other masters and beings. And, Doug, when you're 18 and to 25, God, there's too many blondes, there's too many brunettes, there's, a lot of, I always say nature boy Ric Flair, and, woo, and, there's just, and there's college football, there's pro football, and you get caught up in being human, and crap, you think, 30 years ago, maybe I should have listened more, maybe I should have paid a little bit more attention. And but John has come back to me lately in my dreams, and so that seems to have recycled. So to answer your question, on one hand, yeah, I really appreciate all these experiences. On the other hand, it's like, when you're in your teens and 20s, you really don't know what the hell to do with it.
Hmm.
I think it's about becoming more mature, so that, all those seeds were implanted in me when I was 16, 17, 18 to 25. And now that I'm 54, it's like now I can start to process it and make sense and handle it and be a little bit more mature and responsible with it. I don't know, does that make sense?
It does. And many, many years ago, I would have judged you for being so earthly after you'd had such an experience. I would have. But as the years roll on now, I am starting to change my beliefs that we are here on this earth to have an earthly experience as well.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
I saw a sign a few years ago outside it was outside a health food shop that had like a coffee machine and all there, and it was one of those sandwich boards and chalk written on the board, "This is the only planet that has coffee. Don't stuff it up." And it was sort of like, it was someone who believes in life on other planets, and you could tell from the store it was, they were into alternate things, but it was also like, fucking coffee here, like, let's just enjoy that while we can, and we do. I think we do have to. I mean, I don't think we came here to escape from what goes on here. We came
Right.
here to experience it and to learn. And we can learn a lot of different ways. And I think you can learn chasing your brunettes and blondes. And people would go, "Oh, that's very like how could you?" But you're having
A human
emotional
experience.
relationships. Yeah. And it's everything we do is about human interaction and how we get on with each other. And that's, I mean, part of why my podcast is helping men develop their intuition so they can have a better connection, a better relationship with other humans on the planet. And whether it's their children or their spouse or their work colleagues, the people at their sporting club, wherever, whatever, they can make better, wiser decisions and through developing their intuition. And like you said, all these experiences heightened your intuition. And I wrote a couple of notes here, and I'm just going to go back. Just you mentioned the
Sure.
term trance channel, and to me makes sense. But some of the people listening, just to clarify that one, that's someone who channels information from other beings while they're in a trance. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, and generally, a trance channel allows someone like John the Apostle, or got Daryl Anka, who has channeled Bashar for many, many years, to come through them, to speak through them. But because they're in a trance, they are not aware of what's being said until they come out of the trance, and then they come back. Because there are channels and mediums that are kind of, they allow the voice, the being to come through them, but they're also like right here, and they're aware what's being said. But a trance channel or a trance medium is completely, they're away from the body. They have no idea what's being said or communicated to them until after the fact.
Yeah. Now, just
Yeah.
going back to your story there earlier, a month after your NDE, you've been invited away on a short vacation with your friend's family,
Yeah.
and you start telling the family that their daughter shouldn't come and visit, and you said that she had a car accident. What, I'm just curious, and I know some of the people listening will be curious, like you were passing that information on to your friend's mother. What was coming to you? Was it a voice in your head? Was it an inner knowing? Did you know that she would be
Yeah.
injured?
Yeah.
Um,
I just knew that something bad was going to happen if she came up.
right.
It wasn't like a voice. It was just a knowing. Like, if she comes up, something is bad is going to happen to her, and that she shouldn't be up here right now.
Yeah.
It was
And
just
that
it was
was,
just a knowing. It just, there was no filter, no voice, no message. It was just, look, this is what is. So yeah, just an inner knowing,
and
intuition. Yeah.
with that knowing, was there a push that you had to tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like in my gut, like, you need to say this. you
Yeah.
need to say something. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very, very interesting. Yeah. I'm always curious when things like that. And, you know, that I guess that's it's definitely a form of intuition. And so for the men listening, it's obviously not the only way intuitive messages come to us, but this one was being quite forceful with you. And I guess I would use the word, I'm proud of you that you voiced it, because but then after that you went through this stage of shutting it down. And
Right.
I always have this thing, and this might be just my judgmental self again. If we don't use it, we lose it. So if you used it at that time, and the source of that information, I guess, was probably happy, like, yes, Mark, that was great. We gave you that information for a reason, and you passed it on. Um, then when you started to shut it down, you went and started smoking, marijuana for a couple of years or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
marijuana, hash, yeah,
just
everything. Yeah.
because and I think subconsciously or maybe knowingly, you knew that the marijuana would reduce your connection to this frequency.
Right.
And so the less messages would come, because I guess it was painful with what
Right.
happened.
Because I felt like I was guided to give a message. I gave the message. The message was rejected, and in a sense, I felt somewhat responsible for her dying in the car accident because I felt like I didn't do my job, or what I did was rejected. And the thing I've said for years now is that often we'll pray, or we'll say something like along the lines to God. We'll go, "Dear God, why did you give me a gift that no one wants?" You know, and God's response is, "Dear child, I didn't give you a gift that's not wanted. What is happening is that you're afraid that if people find out that you have that gift, they're not going to want you."
Mm,
So I think that when you are sensitive, when you're intuitive, when you know things, especially as a male, it's more acceptable for females to do this. But when you are a male and you have a strong sense, strong intuition, you're kind of called, you're overly sensitive, or you're crazy, or if you express your feelings, you're called a jerk or something like that. So yeah, I think that because of how that unfolded for me, it's like I didn't want to feel those things anymore until I started getting those messages from John and getting interested in past lives and reincarnation and soulmates. And then I just woke up one morning when I was around 19, and I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, not my life, but I didn't want to do drugs anymore. So I stopped. And I think that's, part of, as you evolve and you grow, and, things like that, you evolve into a different person. But intuition is not only just a gut feeling, it's also, you do hear voices. There are voices, there are angelic messages. And I mentioned before we started about your shirt, it looks like the flower of life pattern. And so this is a true story. I've told this for many, many years now, that since we're talking about the flower of life, my background is restaurant work, and I've done more restaurant work than I care to admit. So I was at 82 Queen in Charleston, and this guy comes into our restaurant every night, and he ends up in my section for like 5 or 6 nights in a row, which is like impossible. And at the time, I'm watching these videotapes called "The Flower of Life" with Drunvalo Melchizedek, and it's about the Sphinx, the pyramids, the Fibonacci spiral, the flower of life symbol that's dated 22,000 years ago over in Abydos. And it's just really fascinating stuff, and it really resonated with me. And so the last night that this guy's in my restaurant, and 82 Queen is still there, um, we have an hour and a half, 2 hour wait. I have 6 tables. I'm in the weeds. It's just crazy. As I'm getting ready to leave the table, because I just got taking his order down, I hear this voice, and it's a female voice saying, "We need you to talk to him," and they're pointing to um, um, Sean, and they're going, "We need you to talk to him about the videotapes you're watching." And I'm just thinking, no, it's not going to happen. I'm too busy. Um, this is just it's not going to happen. And so, Doug, I go to leave the table. I got physically pushed back in front of the table by an unseen force. And they were like, no, we really need you to do this. So, sorry, his son is Sean. His name is Roger. So I'm going, what am I going to ask this guy? What do I, and so I finally go, so are you like a mathematics professor? And so he looks at me and goes, Mark, what did you really want to ask me? And I go, well, I'm watching these videotapes on the pyramids, the Sphinx, the flower of life symbol. He goes, Drunvalo Melchizedek, where did you get those tapes? I have to have those videotapes. So I'm like, hey man, they're not mine. Rosemary gave them to me, and I'll call her in the morning and see if I can give them to you. So I call her the next morning and go, hey, this guy Roger, he's adamant that these tapes belong to him. Is it okay if I give them to him? She goes, yeah, I don't see why not. So I give him the videotapes. A couple of days later, I meet with him and his son Sean, and a few months pass. I don't hear anything from this guy. Don't think I'm ever going to hear anything from this guy. Go to work one morning, same thing. Female voice comes back to me. Angelic voice goes, we need you to go to your manager and tell her that you've got to go home. And I'm like, I just got to work. They're expecting me to work. And so finally I just go, hey, Missy, is it okay if I go home? I guess I'm not feeling well. Oh, yeah, we're going to be slow today. Just go home. So again, the voice comes back and they go, we need you just to go directly to your place. Please do not stop anywhere on the way. I'm like, okay. So I get to my carriage home in Charleston. As I open the door, Doug, the phone rings. It's Roger calling me from France. And he says, hey, Mark, how would you like to work with Drunvalo in person? Like, yeah. Wow. Yeah. What do I need to do? How much is it going to cost? He says, look, thank you for the videotapes. Everything's been paid for. And so, it's like synchro destiny, but I do think that the angels and guides do communicate to us, and it's whether we want to listen or not, or if we resist communication from them.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I just want to add in there for all the men listening, like, yes, what we've been talking there, what Mark's experienced is his intuition, but your intuition is not going to always prompt you to do difficult things or
Right.
awkward things.
Yes.
It comes in many, many different ways. And a quick example I'll give, maybe, or certainly well over a month ago, I had developed a cough and I had a 6 a.m. podcast interview, just like I'm doing right now with Mark. And at, a little after 5, I've got up and I'm sort of coughing and I'm thinking, how's this going to go? Like, should I do the interview, or should I send this guy a message, send him a text and say, sorry, man, I'm not well. Like, we're going to have to reschedule. So I sat down in this very seat where I am right now to do the podcast. This is 45 minutes before it. And I just said to myself, using my intuition, how will I feel if I message this guy and reschedule the podcast? How will I feel inside? And I had a certain feeling. Oh, okay. Now, if we do it and I go ahead and I've got this cough and I'm going to let him do all the talking, how will I feel? And I actually felt better just internally in my gut. It was no big, profound, wild thing. So I thought, well, that's my answer. I'm going to carry on and did it. And I've got a mute button on my microphone. I coughed a few times, so I was able to hit my button at my end. No one knew I was having little coughs in between, and it went wonderful. Now, that gentleman has contacted me several times since that podcast and said it absolutely changed his life. He said
Awesome.
something on that podcast that morning that he's never publicly said before, and it
Mm,
set him free. Something that
wow.
happened in his past, and he said, you have no idea how glad I am that you and I have connected. Now, had I done the podcast, a week or two later, maybe the same thing would have happened. But I'm using that example. It's very different to what Mark's just explained, but both intuition. I believe our intuition comes to us to help us and to help others. And
Absolutely.
often,
Yeah.
often it's just for us. Often we don't have to voice it or verbalize it. And when I started that podcast interview that morning, I didn't tell that gentleman what I'd just done 45 minutes earlier. I still
Right.
haven't told him. It's just, um, it was just for me. It was just, I needed to make a decision, and pretty quickly. And I chose to do that. So, yeah, it's
We,
not
yeah,
just for,
yeah, the big key is not to dismiss it.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. And the more you use it, the more it'll come through. I just believe, if you had a young child there and you were trying to teach this young child something, and you were trying to teach them two different things. And in one area, they were constantly taking your advice and doing it and developing it. You'd be very happy, and you would give them more to do, and you would give them more advanced things to do. And if in the other area they were very hesitant and they wouldn't go with it, they wouldn't practice, they wouldn't try it, you couldn't give them more advanced stuff.
Right.
Like because they're not even at the basics with that thing, but with the area that they've chosen, they like and developing. So I see that in a similar way with the universe, with us. They're observing us constantly. And if we as men are receiving intuitive information, and we're like, we don't like it, we don't want to hear it, we don't want to act with it, so we smoke some weed, we drink some alcohol because we know that dumbs that down, and those things don't come through as strongly or bother us as much. Um, but if we will trust them and go and with the flow of them, I, I I know from personal experience there's profound benefits to myself personally and to other people. I've done some crazy courageous things that have come through synchronicities. Uh,
Yeah.
I I packed my wife and my three young boys, under 7, up, quit my government job as a professional firefighter, packed them up, moved to a remote little island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and built a scuba dive resort through synchronicities. And it was some of the best times of our life when we were there. When it was time to sell it, again, synchronicities came into play a day or two apart, that just showed me that we were to sell that business in radical way. And I followed it and I went with it. And we literally 18 months later, I've got 3 times as much cash in the bank as I would have been happy to sell that business for in a normal business transaction. It
Sure.
just, it, so I've got the runs on the board. I know following these things is where so like Mark's at a level now where he's, lots of things have happened in his life, and he's, you know, so it's not always going to be some crazy thing where you're going to have to talk to a complete stranger about something. Like the lady that rang you at 1:30 in the morning, her intuition would have spoken to her, and it was
Yeah.
for a benefit for you. The benefit
Right.
to her was her universal teacher has gone, oh, she was a nice lady, she followed through with the message, and we can now take her to the next level and make her
Right.
life easier, better. Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
great analogies. Yeah, that's very accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, man, I got to dumb it down so that I get it. So, and then, let's just bring it back down so I can understand this, and hopefully other people can as well. So I've got one final question for you. If your microphone was connected to all 8 billion people on the planet right now, and you knew they wouldn't judge, blame, or shame you for anything you said, what would you say to them right now?
You are it. God source, whatever you call it, is within you right now today. And the idea that you have to wait for the afterlife to experience it is ridiculous. It's ludicrous. The power and presence of God is within you right here, right now, today, in this moment. And it's always within you at any given moment. And it's always guiding you, directing you, um, embracing you, forgiving you, expanding you to all that you're meant to be. And it's just that we resist it.
Awesome. That's very very powerful and very, very true. And from listening to you, some of your other podcast interviews and things you've done, like I've gathered that these experiences you've had have given you that different insight into the other realm. Like the veil's a lot thinner for you between. It's like instead of a block-out curtain, you've got a very thin lacy curtain you can see, and you can tend to see what's on the other side and what's going on, and it's not all secret and withheld from you. You can see a lot more than we can, and yeah.
How do I? That's correct, and I appreciate you saying that. The Mayans and Aztecs called this an illusion, not because it's not real. They called it an illusion because we only see 2% of the light spectrum that's out there. So someone like me that still sees auras and the elementals and elves and fairies, we just see a larger perspective of the light spectrum, but it's all right here, right now. And the analogy I've used over and over again is those images that if you look at it one way, there's one image. If you hold it another way, there's another image. If you turn it this way, they're just like superimposed on top of each other. And it's depending on what light spectrum that reflects back to you is where your level of consciousness is at. And the more the light spectrum that you see, the more that you have a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of awareness. But it's all just superimposed on top of each other. This is what entanglement shows. This is what string theory has shown. This is what quantum physics has shown, that it's all right here, right now. And it's just different spectrums of light. And the more open that you are, the more of these light frequencies that you see. But it's all connected. It's all here right now. There's, and yeah, it's really amazing. And so there's some really, I know that we don't see it. I know we get caught up in all the stuff that's going on in the world today, like the war, people the craziness of the politics here in the United States. It's rigged, it's all rigged, it's lies, it's just, this is insanity. The focus on you, focus on what you want, focus on the power and presence within you, and let that expand, because you get too caught up, you get lost. Not that this is not important, because it is, but the real truth is within you. And I mean, if that was the one message I could say over and over again, is that that presence, that source is within you right now today, and that you don't have to cross over to experience it. You can experience that love, that peace, that forgiveness right now, right today, because it is and it always will be within you while you're in a body.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that example you give of the light spectrum, I've heard that before, and that, but it makes me think of the sound spectrum, and we have the dog whistle that,
The dog was,
and I'll use the word apparently, only dogs can hear it, because when we blow it, we can't hear it, but the dogs will react. So same thing on the sound frequency. There are noises we can't hear. Our human ears aren't designed to hear them, but scientists have, inventors and that have improved that in the sound realm, and so obviously in the light realm as well. It's a fraction of what's visible out there.
what's
Yeah,
available,
yeah. All right. So in the show notes, there'll be links to your information where people can get hold of you. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to mention?
yeah. I guess I feel like I'm supposed to share this story with you. This is a true story about autistic children. So in 2009, I was at the East West Bookstore in Mountain View, California, south of San Francisco. And I had this really severely autistic child. In fact, his mother was trying to get him to do a session with me because she wanted me to fix him or heal him or whatever she called it. And he wore a mask. He wore a mask as a way to hide from society, as a way to protect himself from society. And there's in the back of the East West bookstore, there's a hallway from the front of the store to back to where people do talks and where people do presentations and hold sessions and things like that. Well, this kid, just kept running out of the store. I mean, just did not want to do the session, didn't want to be there. Finally, he's like clinging on to his mom for like dear life as she kind of brings him back to where I'm at. And Doug, we finally get him on the table, and he's just like, he's got his mask on, he's closed off, and she's like, do something. I'm like, look, I'm not here to fix him. I'm not here to save him, but I'm going to do something, but I need you just to kind of calm down. It's going to be okay. And so I just got real still with him. I mean, like, I'm talking Zen monk stillness, because that's what kind of trusting my guidance, what my dreams had talked to me about, to be really still with this kid. And so, Doug, I went to this space of stillness. And after a few minutes, I heard this voice say, "We want you to open your eyes and see what's about to happen." So I opened my eyes. The kid sits up. He pulls his mask off. He has tears running down his eyes. He looks at me and goes, "I've been waiting for you." And he starts talking to me for 20 or 30 minutes like we are best friends. His mother is sitting over there with her mouth open. She's in total disbelief. She cannot believe what just happened because, according to her, he definitely doesn't want anything to do with men, especially talking to them. And so we have this amazing conversation. And what I told people is that if you have an autistic child that is like that, and you're always in your energy, your head about, why don't you talk? Why aren't you normal? Why aren't you like your brother Johnny? They're going to say, no, thank you. And so what I did is I allowed my guides and angels to work through me to create a space of energetic acceptance that gave that boy permission to be himself. Because if you find, most autistic children are content with who they are, they're at peace with themselves. And this is the gift of these autistic children, is they're trying to get us to remember to be, not to always be out doing and always going here, doing this, doing that. They are being. And that's why they're showing us this aspect of humanity, is the beingness that we've so lost in touch with in all of our human and all the stuff that we have to do on a day-to-day basis. They are wanting us to return to that human being. So I just felt guided to share that story with you because it's
Wow.
pretty profound.
So the boy there, he wasn't necessarily, loosely used the word, healed. He just responded to you very differently because you changed the frequency in the area between you and he. And
Right.
he was able to then communicate in that way because when the frequency is how it normally is, it's
Threatening to
different.
him.
Yeah. And so goes
Yeah.
within, and he's being within himself. And you changed the resonance of the frequency, the field around the two of you.
Right.
He wasn't afraid of it. and was able to come out and speak. So when you're assuming, I guess, once he left that room, he would have gone
Oh,
back to how he was.
yeah. I mean, as soon as he got to the table, he put his mask back on and left. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, that's crazy.
And again, it wasn't me. It was my higher self, my guides, my angels doing that through me. I
Yeah,
just allowed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You just had an intuitive sense to be still.
Yeah. Well, I actually, about a week, I was told in my dreams to do that. I
Right
got that message in my dreams. Yeah.
before that.
Before that. Yep.
Right. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's very profound. Yeah, that's an excellent story, and yeah, very helpful because I don't know the statistic. I have heard the statistics, but I can't bring them to mind. But you know, in compared to 100 years ago, the percentage of children that have some small or large degree of autism has increased a lot.
Skyrocketed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, you hit the head on the nail. It's all, and that story I just gave you can be applied to any aspect of your life. You change your energy, change your frequency, your life will change.
yeah. And it takes me back to your example earlier with the gallstones,
Yeah,
where the you know the medical doctors these days are using sound waves to break them up, and the changing within. So we if we you know keep our frequency all messed up or not in a good state, these it'll become that it won't be easy. There'll be dis-ease, and
disease, resistance.
disease, yeah, the disease will grow, and the heavy energy, that will come and form and then physically create something in our bodies. Yeah. So yeah,
Yep.
like you say, yeah. Yeah. So it's not just for that message was not just for people with autistic children. It was for all of us to learn to be and to be still and to change that frequency around us. And yeah,
Yeah,
very,
absolutely.
very good. Yeah, no, I've loved that conversation. And like I say, your contact information. And you do sessions with people one on one, or do you only do them in person? Or
No, I'm still playing with modern technology to do sound healings over Zoom. I still got to tweak a few things, but yeah, I definitely do past life regression. Uh, just real quickly, because we were talking about this earlier, like let's say that a woman tries to conceive a child, but no matter what she does, she cannot conceive a child. Well, what if in a past life she was in the circumstances or situation where she was forced to leave a baby at the doorsteps of a church because she was not able to take care of it. So in the current lifetime or subconscious or whatever, subconscious or in her body, she thinks if I have a kid, I'm going to have to give it up. I'm going to lose the child. So subconsciously, her body will do whatever it can to keep her from getting pregnant again because that memory is of that of pain. And so what we do on Zoom with hypnosis sessions, past life regression or counseling is we get to that core emotional cause. And once that energy is released from the body, then the woman is able to conceive a child again. Yeah.
wow. Okay, yeah, and all sorts of other things, obviously.
Also,
So,
right.
yeah, and like you were saying, your technology is challenging with the voice toning. Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because when Mark and I talked a week ago, he gave me an example of it. For the first second or two, it was there, and then it just went
It cuts
silent.
out.
Yeah,
We don't, and I know a long time ago I was able to do it. Now we got more advanced technology, and now I can't do it. So,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right, go figure.
Yeah, so people, so remotely you can do the
Yep.
hypnosis. The
Hypnosis, past life regression,
Yep,
intuitive counseling. Yeah, those things are real easy to do via Zoom.
right.
Absolutely.
So when you say intuitive counseling, people might share with you an issue in their life that they want to improve, and
Just like yeah,
intuitively information will come to you and you'll share it with them.
yeah, life coaching, spiritual coaching, yeah,
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it. Yeah, sure.
excellent. And when you overcome the technology glitch, you'll be able to do the sound toning as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, excellent. All right. So, yeah, if people are interested in that, they can go into the show notes and your contact info's there. That'll be great. Thank you so
So,
much for your time today. I've learned a lot. I've really enjoyed it. And I will put in here after this little bit here, I'll take 3 short little, maybe 30-second snippets of those
okay,
sound clips that you've given me, and they're very different. So if you start listening to the first one, it'll be just a single tone. Give
right,
it 30 seconds, and then I'll put the second one on, which is different. And yeah, so 3 very different tones, and I'll put samples of them on as we go here before my little outro comes on. Excellent. Thanks for
perfect.
your
All right.
time, Mark.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate you. All right. Stay in
Okay.
touch.
Bye, mate. Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.